I survived a bullet to the chest in a Windsor warehouse, a knife fight in a Montreal alley, and 8 years living under a name that wasn't mine. I'd infiltrated drug cartels from Vancouver to Halifax, always one wrong word away from a shallow grave. But nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared me for what I found when I finally came home to British Columbia. The call came on a Tuesday in March. My handler's voice was tight. "Mackenzie, it's time. Operations wrapped. You're clear to surface." 8 years. 8 years since I'd been Robert Mackenzie. 8 years since I'd seen my father's face, heard my real name spoken aloud, slept in a bed without a weapon under the pillow. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police doesn't do short-term undercover work when you're tracking organized crime across the country. You go deep, you stay deep, and you pray the people you love understand why you disappeared. I'd left home when I was 54. Dad was 76 then, sharp as ever despite his age, a Korean War veteran who'd spent 30 years as a millwright before retiring. Tough old Scot who could still outwork men half his age. Before I went under, I'd done right by him. Used my savings and a good chunk of my inheritance from Mum to buy him a beautiful property in Kelowna, $3.2 million for 3 acres of lakefront paradise in the Okanagan Valley. Stone and timber house, private dock, mountains rising up behind it like something out of a postcard. "You've done too much, Bobby," he'd said when I gave him the keys. His eyes were wet. "You raised me right, Dad, you and Mum. This is just paying it forward." I'd set up automatic transfers too, $1,500 a month into his account, enough to cover property taxes, utilities, groceries, everything. My younger brother David lived in Kelowna with his wife Stephanie. They'd promised to look after Dad while I was away, check in on him, make sure he was all right. I should have known better. The flight from Toronto to Kelowna took 4.5 hours. I'd shaved the beard I'd worn for 8 years, cut my hair short, bought clothes that actually fit. The man in the airport bathroom mirror looked like a stranger. Gray at the temples now, lines around the eyes. 62 years old and feeling every single one of them. I'd called ahead from a burner phone, left a message on Dad's landline that I was coming home. Didn't say who I was. Operational security was still second nature, just said, "An old friend is coming to visit. Wednesday afternoon." The rental car smelled like chemical pine. I drove east from the airport, Lake Okanagan spreading out blue and endless to my right. March in the interior, snow still on the peaks, but spring fighting its way through in the valley. I'd missed 8 springs. 8 summers watching the tourists flock to the beaches. 8 autumns when the vineyards turned gold. I pulled up to the property just after 2 in the afternoon, and my first thought was that I had the wrong address. The gate was open. That was wrong already. The gate was supposed to be closed. Dad was careful about security. The stone pillars on either side looked the same, but there was a sign now. A wooden sign with cheerful painted letters. Lakeshore Paradise Retreat. Premium Vacation Rental. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I drove through, following the winding driveway through the pine trees. The house came into view, and something in my chest went cold. There were cars in the driveway. Expensive cars. A Tesla, a BMW SUV, a Mercedes. None of them were Dad's old Ford pickup. I parked at the edge of the drive and walked toward the house. Music was playing somewhere, voices laughing. Through the big windows I could see people inside. Young people, 20-somethings in expensive athleisure, holding wine glasses. What in the hell? I was halfway to the front door when I saw him. An old man, thin, stooped, wearing a stained canvas jacket and work pants. He was raking leaves near the stone pathway, his movements slow and careful. White hair, weathered face. My father. I stopped walking. Actually felt my legs go numb. Dad was bent over the rake, breathing hard. He looked small. That was the word that hit me first. Small. Dad had never been small. Even in his 70s, he'd been solid, strong. This man looked like he'd aged 20 years. His jacket hung loose on him. His hands on the rake were skeletal. I walked closer. My boots crunched on gravel and he looked up. His eyes were cloudy, confused. The sharp clarity I remembered was gone, replaced by something foggy, uncertain. "Hello, sir," I said. My voice came out rough. "I'm looking for Frank Mackenzie." He blinked at me. "That's me." I'm an old friend. From the service. It wasn't exactly a lie. The service? He squinted. Korean War? Yes, sir. He nodded slowly, then went back to raking. Haven't had many visitors lately. Busy with the guests. He gestured toward the house. The guests? Aye, Mr. David's guests. Renting the house, you know. Good income for the property. He said it like he was reciting something he'd been told. Mr. David handles all that. Mr. David, my brother. And where are you staying, Frank? He pointed past the house with the rake. Got a nice little place out back. Shed's been fixed up, real comfortable. Mr. David says it's important the guests have the full run of the main house. Privacy, you know. I followed his gesture. Past the house, near the tree line, I could see it. A shed. Not a guest cottage. Not a proper dwelling. A shed. Weathered wood, small windows, the kind of structure you keep tools in. My father, the man who'd served his country, worked himself half to death to provide for his family. The man I'd bought a $3 million house for was living in a shed. I stood there with the afternoon sun on my face, and the sound of laughter drifting from the house, and I wanted to put my fist through something. When did you last see David? I asked. Dad's face scrunched up, thinking, oh, he comes by. Maybe last week? He's very busy, you know. Important business. His wife, too. Mrs. Stephanie. Very busy people. Do you have children of your own, Frank? The fog in his eyes cleared just a little. 2 boys. David, he lives here in Kelowna. Good boy. Looks after everything now. A pause. Had another son. Robert. Bobby. But he's gone. Gone? Died. 8 years ago. Line of duty. He was police, you know. RCMP. Very proud. Dad's voice cracked. I miss my Bobby. I couldn't breathe. Actually couldn't pull air into my lungs. David had told him I was dead. I managed to nod. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. He went back to raking. I walked away before I did something I'd regret. Got back in the rental car. Sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. In the house, through the windows, I could see the guests laughing, drinking wine, enjoying their premium vacation rental. My phone was in my hand before I'd consciously decided to make the call. The number still worked. David answered on the 3rd ring. Yeah? It's Robert. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ. Bobby? I'm home. More silence. I could hear him breathing. You're... How? When? Today. I'm in Kelowna. Shit. Okay. He sounded rattled. Good. You should have called ahead, man. I could have. I did call. Left a message on Dad's line. Oh, right. Dad doesn't really? He doesn't check messages anymore. He's not great. Bobby. I noticed. Look, we should meet up. Talk. There's a lot to explain. The house is a rental property now? A pause. It's complicated. Try me. Not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow. There's a coffee shop in downtown Kelowna, Bean Scene, on Bernard Avenue. 10 in the morning? Fine. Bobby, it's good you're back, man. Really good. We have a lot to catch up on. I hung up. That night I checked into a hotel in downtown Kelowna. Sat on the bed with my laptop and started digging. 8 years doing undercover work teaches you how to find information people don't want found. The property records showed the house was still in Dad's name. That was something. But there were liens against it. A line of credit for $400,000, taken out 2 years ago. Signature, Frank Mackenzie. But I'd bet everything I owned that Dad hadn't signed that himself. I found the Airbnb listing next. Lakeshore Paradise Retreat. Luxury 4. BR Lakefront Estate. $800 a night. Booked solid through the summer. Reviews going back 18 months. Quick math. At 70% occupancy, that was roughly $200,000 a year in rental income. Going into whose pocket? I checked Dad's bank account next. The online access I'd set up 8 years ago still worked. The automatic $1,500 monthly deposits were still going through. Good. But the withdrawals, every month, like clockwork, $1,500 out, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. So the money I sent for Dad was being redirected immediately. There were other withdrawals too, grocery purchases, but they were tiny. $40 here, $60 there, not enough to properly feed a man. The veteran's pension Dad received $2,200 a month was also being transferred out, same unknown account. I pulled up the property tax records. Overdue, $18,000 in arrears. So David was pulling in $200K a year from rentals, taking Dad's pension, taking my monthly deposits, had taken out a $400,000 loan against the house, and wasn't even paying the property taxes. I sat there in the dark hotel room, and I felt something cold settle into my bones. The same coldness I'd felt going into a drug dealer's compound knowing I might not come out. But this was different. This was family. I didn't sleep that night. I planned instead. The next morning I showed up at Bean Scene 15 minutes early, watched through the window as David arrived. He looked good. Too good. Expensive jacket, designer jeans, new watch that probably cost more than Dad's monthly pension. He spotted me through the window and waved. All smiles. I went inside. "Bobby!" He went in for a hug. I let him, but I didn't return it. He pulled back, grinning. "Man, you look good. I can't believe you're actually here. Sit, sit." We sat. He ordered some complicated latte. I got black coffee. "So," he said, 8 years undercover. That's incredible, man. Must have been intense." "It was." "Can you talk about it?" "No." Right. Classified." "I get it." He sipped his latte. "Listen, about Dad." "Tell me." He sighed, set down his cup. "It's dementia, Bobby. Early stages, but it's there. Started maybe 3 years ago. Little things at first. Forgetting where he put his keys. Repeating stories. But it got worse. And you didn't think to contact me? How? You were underground. The RCMP said you were unreachable. That was true. Operational security meant no contact. But there were emergency protocols. Ways to get messages through in true emergencies. Keep going. He couldn't manage the house anymore. It was too much for him. The upkeep, the taxes, everything. He was forgetting to pay bills. I had to step in. By turning it into an Airbnb, David's jaw tightened. By finding a way to make the property pay for itself. Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain a place like that? Property taxes alone are $22,000 a year. Insurance, utilities, maintenance. Dad's pension didn't cover half of it. I was sending $1,500 a month, which helped, but it wasn't enough. The house needed a new roof last year. $45,000. The dock needed repairs. $12,000. The property was drowning in debt. So you took out a $400,000 line of credit. His eyes narrowed. You've been checking up. Answer the question. Yes, took out a line of credit to cover emergency repairs and back taxes. I'm the one with power of attorney, Bobby. I'm the one who's been here dealing with all of this, while you were off playing cop. Playing cop? I let that slide. And Dad's living in a shed? It's not a shed. It's a renovated guest cottage. I saw it, David. It's a shed. He's comfortable there. He has heat, running water, a bed. The main house needed to be rental ready. You can't have a confused old man wandering around when guests are paying $800 a night. He thinks I'm dead. David looked away. That was a kindness. A kindness. He kept asking where you were, why you didn't visit, why you didn't call. It was breaking his heart, Bobby. So I told him, you died in the line of duty. It gave him closure. I stared at my brother, saw a stranger. Where's the rental money going? Into an account I manage for Dad's care. Show me. Excuse me? Show me the account. Right now. Pull it up on your phone. He shifted in his seat. This is insulting. Show me. We stared at each other. Finally, he stood up. I don't have to sit here and be interrogated. I've been taking care of Dad while you were gone. I've kept the property afloat. I've made hard decisions that you weren't here to make. If you don't like how I've handled things, fine. You're back now. You can deal with it. He walked out. I sat there finishing my coffee, watching him through the window as he climbed into his BMW and drove away. Then I got to work. First call was to Sarah Chen, An old friend from my RCMP days. She'd left the force 5 years ago to start a private investigation firm in Vancouver, specialized in financial crimes. Robert Mackenzie, she said when she answered. I heard you were back among the living. How's it feel? Like I went to sleep and woke up in someone else's nightmare. I need help, Sarah. I'm listening. I laid it out. Everything. She listened without interrupting. And when I finished, she was quiet for a moment. How dirty do you want to get? She asked. What do you mean? I mean, if your brother is doing what you think he's doing, there's evidence. Bank records, forged documents, paper trails. But getting that evidence, it's not always legal. I spent 8 years breaking the law to catch criminals. That's not an answer, Sarah. This is my father. Okay then, I'll need 3 days, maybe 4. Can you hold out that long? I'll manage. One more thing. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. All the way. Criminal charges, asset recovery, the works. Are you prepared for that? Because it's your brother we're talking about. I thought about Dad raking leaves in a stained jacket. About him telling a stranger that his son was dead. He stopped being my brother when he started this. All right then. I'll call you. Next call was to Veterans Affairs Canada. Got transferred 3 times before I reached someone who could help. Explained that I was calling about my father, Frank Mackenzie, service number 187432, Korean War veteran. Explained that I'd been away and just discovered he was living in substandard conditions. We'd need to do a home visit, the woman said. Assess his living situation. I'd appreciate that. And you are? His son, Robert Mackenzie, RCMP, just finished an 8-year operation. Her tone changed. I see. Give me your contact information, Mr. Mackenzie. We'll have someone out there within 48 hours. Third call was the hardest. Called the Kelowna RCMP detachment. Asked for the fraud division. Got a corporal named Jennifer Walsh. This is regarding a potential case of financial elder abuse, I said. Victim is my father, 84 years old, Korean War veteran, showing signs of dementia. I have reason to believe his power of attorney is being misused. I'll need you to come in and make a formal statement. I can be there in an hour. That afternoon, I sat in an interview room, strange being on this side of the table, and laid out everything I knew. Walsh took notes, asked good questions. She was maybe 35, sharp eyes, the kind of cop who didn't miss details. The challenge, she said when I finished, is that if your brother has legitimate power of attorney, he's legally entitled to make financial decisions for your father. We'd need to prove he's acting against your father's interests. He's living in a shed while my brother rents out his house. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm explaining what we need for charges. Bank records showing he's enriching himself. Evidence, the power of attorney, was obtained through fraud or coercion. Documentation that your father's care is being neglected. I can get you that. She studied me. You've been undercover for 8 years? Yes. Then you know how this works. We build a case. Slowly. Carefully. No cowboy shit. No cowboy shit, I agreed. Good. I'll start pulling records. You work with your investigator friend. We'll compare notes in a week. I spent the next 3 days watching the house. Not obvious about it, years undercover had taught me how to be invisible. Rented different cars. Changed positions. Took photos. Watched the guests come and go. Watched Dad shuffle around the property doing yard work, looking lost. Watched David show up twice to collect mail, but never once go check on his father. Watched Stephanie arrive in her Mercedes, wearing clothes that cost more than Dad's monthly food budget, carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. On the 4th day, Sarah called. Got it, she said. All of it. Your instincts were right. Tell me. The Airbnb account is in David's name. Personal account. The income's being reported as his income for tax purposes. None of it's going into your father's care account. In fact, there is no care account. Jesus. It gets worse. The $400,000 line of credit, most of it went to paying off David's personal debts, credit cards, a boat loan, a previous line of credit on his own house. Your father's property is basically being used as an ATM. The power of attorney? Signed 3 years ago. Your father's signature is on it. But I had a forensic document examiner look at it. His opinion, and this would hold up in court, is that the signature was guided, meaning someone helped your father sign by physically guiding his hand, possibly without him fully understanding what he was signing. That's fraud. That's fraud. There's more. Your father's veteran's pension and your monthly deposits, all diverted to an account David controls. He's been taking roughly $45,000 a year of your father's money plus $200,000 in rental income. Meanwhile, your father's actual expenses, food, medication, basic needs, total about $8,000 a year. I did the math. Over 3 years, David had stolen nearly $750,000. I'm sending you everything, Sarah said. Encrypted email. Share it with your RCMP contact. This is enough for fraud charges, exploitation of a vulnerable person, possibly theft over $5,000. We're looking at serious prison time. Thank you, Sarah. One more thing. I checked property records. David started the process to sell the house. Listing goes active next month. Price, $3.8 million. The coldness in my chest turned to ice. He was going to sell Dad's house out from under him. That night I went back to the property. Late, after midnight, the guests were asleep, lights out in the main house. I moved through the trees like I'd moved through 100 operations before, silent, invisible, purposeful. The shed had a light on inside. I looked through the window. Dad was sitting on a narrow cot, still dressed, staring at the wall. The space was maybe 10 feet by 12. A cot, a small dresser, a camping stove, a mini fridge. This was where he lived. On the dresser, I could see a photograph. I recognized it even from outside. It was from my RCMP graduation. Me in my red serge, Dad standing next to me, both of us grinning. Mum had taken that photo. She'd been so proud. Dad reached out and touched the frame. His lips moved. I couldn't hear through the window, but I could read the word. Bobby. I turned away and walked back through the trees, got in the car, drove back to the hotel. I didn't sleep. I sat at the desk and I wrote everything, a detailed timeline, every transaction, every piece of evidence, everything Sarah had found, everything I'd observed, everything the Veterans Affairs Inspector would find when they showed up tomorrow. At 8 a.m., I sent it all to Corporal Walsh. At 9 a.m., she called me back. "This is solid work," she said. "I'm bringing this to my staff sergeant. Based on what you've got here, we can get warrants." "How long?" 48 hours for the paperwork. Then we move. At 10 a.m., the Veterans Affairs Inspector called. She'd just finished her home visit. "Mr. Mackenzie," she said, and her voice was tight with anger. "Your father is living in conditions that are completely unacceptable for a veteran of his age and status. I'm filing an immediate report. We'll be looking into who's responsible for this." "I can tell you exactly who's responsible." "I'd like to hear it." I told her. 48 hours later, I was sitting in my rental car half a block from David's house when Corporal Walsh called. "Warrants are approved," she said. "We're executing them now, both the property and your brother's residence. Financial records, computers, everything. I thought you'd want to know. Thank you. Stay clear of it, Robert. Let us do our jobs." I stayed clear, waited. At 2 p.m., Walsh called again. "We've got him." Found forged documents, altered bank statements, emails between David and his wife discussing how to maximize the old man's assets. They were sloppy. They thought no one was watching. Arrests? This afternoon. Both of them. Charges are exploitation of a vulnerable person, fraud over $5,000, forgery, and theft. Your brother's looking at 8 to 10 years if convicted. His wife probably 6 to 8. I sat in that car and felt something loosen in my chest. Not satisfaction, not yet. Relief, maybe. Justice starting to turn its wheels. What about Dad? That's why I'm calling. We need to figure out his immediate care. He can't stay in that shed, and with your brother in custody, there's no one authorized to make decisions for him. I'm authorized. I'm his son. You'd need guardianship. That takes time. How much time? 2 weeks minimum. Court hearing, assessment, the works. In the meantime, we need emergency placement. No. The word came out harder than I meant it. No institutions. No strangers. He's been through enough. Walsh was quiet. What are you suggesting? I'm home now. I'll take care of him. Temporarily. Until the guardianship comes through. That's irregular. Corporal Walsh. I spent 8 years putting criminals in prison. I think I can handle taking care of my own father for 2 weeks. She sighed. Let me make some calls. By evening, it was arranged. Emergency, temporary custody, pending guardianship hearing. Veterans Affairs signed off. The social worker who came to assess me asked about 100 questions and finally nodded. Your father's lucky you came home when you did, she said. I drove out to the property just before sunset. The guests had been cleared out. The house was a crime scene now, part of the investigation. I walked past the yellow tape, past the main house, to the shed. Dad was sitting on his cot, looking confused and frightened. There'd been police here all day, people coming and going, asking questions he couldn't answer. I knocked on the doorframe. He looked up. Hello, Frank, I said gently. I'm here to take you somewhere safe. I don't understand what's happening, he said. His voice shook. Mr. David was arrested. They say he stole from me. That's right. But he's my son. David wouldn't. I knelt down in front of him, looked into those cloudy eyes. Dad, I said. It's me. It's Bobby. He stared at me. Bobby's dead. No, I'm right here. I was away working, deep undercover. I couldn't contact you. But I'm home now. His hand came up slowly, trembling, touched my face. His eyes filled with tears. Bobby? Yeah, Dad. It's me. He pulled me into a hug, held on so tight I could feel him shaking. He smelled like old sweat and cheap soap, and underneath it all, the faint scent of the aftershave he'd worn my whole life. I thought you were gone, he whispered. I thought I'd lost you like I lost your mum. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. We stayed like that until the sunset turned the sky orange and gold through the shed's small window. I got Dad settled in a care home that night. Not just any place, a veteran's residence in Kelowna that specialized in dementia care. Clean rooms, good food, staff who actually gave a damn. I used some of my own savings to cover the first month while we sorted out the finances. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Court hearings, paperwork, medical assessments, financial audits. The Crown prosecutor laid out the case against David and Stephanie. They'd stolen over $700,000, neglected Dad's care, forged legal documents. The evidence was overwhelming. David's lawyer tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, tried to argue that David had been acting in Dad's best interests. But the photos of that shed, the medical reports showing malnutrition, the bank records showing money flowing into David's personal accounts, there was no talking around it. Both of them took plea deals. David got 9 years. Stephanie got 7. Asset seizure meant they'd have to sell their house, their cars, everything, to pay back what they'd stolen. The guardianship hearing was straightforward. Dad's doctor testified about the dementia. I testified about my plans for his care. The judge granted it without hesitation. Mr. Mackenzie, the judge said, looking at me over her glasses, your father is fortunate to have a son willing to step up after everything he's endured, both in war and in his own home. Guardianship granted. I got Dad moved to a better room in the care facility, private, with a view of the mountains. Got his belongings from the shed, which wasn't much. Some clothes. That photograph from my graduation. A box of letters. From Mum. The house needed work before Dad could move back in, but I had time. I hired contractors. Used the recovered funds. New roof, updated plumbing, proper security. Made one of the main floor bedrooms into a suite for Dad with a bathroom he could manage. 3 months after I came home, on a warm day in June, I brought Dad back to his house. We stood in the driveway, the lake sparkling beyond the trees, the mountains rising up behind us. He looked at the house for a long time. Bobby, he said, is this really mine? It's really yours, Dad. Always has been. And I can stay here? No guests? No guests, just us. We walked inside together. He moved slowly through the rooms, touching the furniture, looking out the windows. In the main bedroom, I'd hung that photograph from my graduation. When he saw it, he stopped. That was a good day, he said. Yeah, it was. Your mum was so proud. I know. He looked at me. His eyes were clearer than they'd been in months. The confusion wasn't gone. Dementia doesn't work that way, but in that moment, he was present. You came back for me, he said. Of course I did. I knew you weren't dead. I knew it. His voice cracked. I knew my boy wouldn't leave me. I pulled him into a hug. That evening, we sat on the dock. The sunset painted the lake in shades of copper and rose. A loon called somewhere across the water. Dad sat in a comfortable chair I'd bought for him, a blanket over his legs, even though it was warm. Tell me about where you were, he said. Can you tell me now? Some of it, so I did. Told him about the cities I'd lived in under different names, about the people I'd helped put away drug traffickers, organized crime bosses, people who hurt the vulnerable for profit. Didn't tell him about the close calls, the violence, the nights I'd thought I wouldn't see morning. He listened, nodding sometimes, and when I finished, he was quiet. You did good work, Bobby. Tried to. And David? His voice was small. What he did to me. That was real? Yeah, Dad. That was real. He's my son. I know. But he hurt me. I know that too. We sat in silence, watching the light fade. Finally, Dad reached over and took my hand. His grip was weak, but it was there. I'm glad you're home, he whispered. I squeezed his hand gently. Me too, Dad. Me too. The loon called again. The stars started to come out, reflected in the still water. Somewhere across the lake, someone was having a bonfire. The smell of wood smoke drifted over on the evening breeze. I'd survived 8 years in the shadows, 8 years being someone else. I'd come home expecting to find my father comfortable and cared for. Instead, I'd found him broken, betrayed by his own blood. But we were here now, together. And that shed was gone, torn down last week. In its place, I was going to plant a garden. Dad had always liked gardens, tomatoes and beans, and flowers Mum used to grow. Tomorrow we'd start going through her letters, the ones David had never bothered to preserve. Tomorrow I'd take Dad to the doctor for his checkup. Tomorrow we'd start building a routine, a life, making up for the time that had been stolen. But tonight, we sat together watching the stars come out over the lake. Two old men who'd seen too much and survived anyway. The water lapped softly against the dock. Dad's breathing grew slow and even. I thought he'd fallen asleep, but then he spoke. Bobby? Yeah, Dad? Thank you for finding me. I had to swallow hard before I could answer. Always, Dad. I'll always find you. He squeezed my hand once more, and we sat there in the gathering dark, finally home.